My name is Dylan, and I am born and raised in New Jersey, but I'm actually living in Vietnam right now. And before that, I was living in Korea, so I had the chance to live in a lot of places. So yeah, and a fun fact about me is, um, I would say I have a lot of hobbies everywhere. Like I'm a swimmer. I used to swim for the national team. But at the same time, I'm also really a passionate chef. So like I'm really all around. So I guess that's something really cool that I enjoy. Because I feel like there are a lot of business competitions and tournaments out there, but to have like that hands-on experience of incubating a startup and to meet these amazing people is only unique to LaunchX. Mainly because what really drew me into LaunchX was the fact that we actually had that real life experience of creating a startup, since developing an idea and taking that idea into something more meaningful, there's like a really big gap in my opinion. And I felt like LaunchX was the platform that kind of bridged the two and helped us do what we wanted to do in terms of developing one. So I guess that's what really drew me in. And another one was the fact that there's so many like talented people in LaunchX all around the world. Like I feel like in my community, I always felt like, I wouldn't say there weren't like-minded peers, but I always felt like there was that lack of like drive in my peers. And meeting people in LaunchX just like me not only helped me improve, but it also like motivates me to strive even further. Right now, we wanted to enter the education technology industry. And just to give you our mission statement for our company lesson is to connect students to share learning experiences out of school anytime, anywhere. And what I wanted to talk about was the differentiation between learning and lecturing, since there are platforms like Coursera, Khan Academy, where you're lectured videos. But I feel like students, even for me, there are always issues with lack of motivation or procrastinating. And like, if you aren't really willing to learn for these lecture materials, you're not really going to get the process. So what we wanted to do was to have this community forum page where students who have similar learning curriculum share their own hacks, their shortcuts, their tips to learning that other students would be interested in sharing as well. So that was what we wanted to solve. I feel like when I was younger, I was a swimmer since I was 7. So I feel like I was always a competitive person. But I started using this like mindset into entrepreneurship last year when I first got the courage and passion to start my own organizations. And I feel like what I really enjoy is this idea of self-efficacy where I help others succeed. And I feel like my own success and what I achieve is really cool. But I feel like whenever I help mentor other students and help them succeed even more is something that I'm really passionate about. So that being said, I really like the idea of consulting, not even if it's at like a professional level. I like helping my friends out whenever they have an idea. I feel like I'm creative. I try to help them make it even cooler. And in terms of, education, my passion lies between entrepreneurship and computer science. So that is something that I want to pursue as a major at like college level. But in terms of what I believe in, I really like empowering others into their own passions. I wouldn't really say I had a specific person, but I would say more of a mindset, since my dad and my grandpa were also entrepreneurs in the architecture industry. So they're both architects, and I felt like I got a lot of their creative innovation mindset from them. But also as a swimmer, I always liked to win, since swimming is like an individual sport. But at the same time, there is this huge idea of a team supporting you. And I felt like using that competitive mindset and like the innovative creativity from my family, I feel like that really brew in when I was starting to think about what I wanted to do for a career. And on top of that, I'm actually also a game designer. So that's really what kind of stepped me into entrepreneurship, since I started by just playing video games, wondering like how they were made. And that curiosity led me to how I could commercialize games, make partnerships. So I would say There's quite a few things, so I can't really pinpoint a specific moment, but it's almost like that aha moment as you're growing up with everything kind of meeting into one. Like I've mentioned earlier, the community is amazing, and I really enjoyed a lot of the community events since I'm in the Asian cohort. So there are like sessions every day where I meet them. But to get to know people in the other three cohorts around the world, listening to their stories and their startups, I feel like the community events were really fun. Recently, I actually took the coding bootcamp over the weekend. And as a game designer and a computer science student, I always had this mindset of what a programmer did. But what the coding bootcamp did was like an almost like an entrepreneur POV of what programming was, which was like, I wouldn't say a direct opposite, but it was like new to like what I would normally think of, which is almost like changing your habits of like what a programmer does into like an entrepreneurial way. So for example, like as a programmer, a lot of my mentors never told me to use like Google to search for algorithms. We would need to make everything ourselves. But I feel like the idea of resource management for entrepreneurs is very important. They kind of like source out things on Google, use it to their own advantage. So I would say that difference was really memorable. And it was actually 2 all-nighters for me being in a different time zone. But like there were like a few other students who kind of like, in the chat, we were making jokes, having some Red Bull. And it was almost like a camping trip where we were all like, staying like midnight, coding. So it was an amazing experience. I feel like the most important thing is grit. And I'm saying that because, like I've mentioned earlier, there's a big difference between making an idea and putting it into action. And I feel like anyone could think of something, but putting it into action requires grit. And the second thing goes hand in hand with the idea of resilience. Like, I feel like nothing will come to you easily. And it definitely was a rough journey for me as an athlete, as a game developer, and anything that I do. But I feel like you need to win those turbulent times to be successful. And I feel like those are the two things. And the final thing that I would say is the idea of like inspiration. And what I mean by that is I feel like it's actually coming from a book that I read really recently called Start With Why by Simon Sinek. And I feel like what's really important is leadership is not really a person, but it's an action. And the ability to inspire and to like put your ideas into action, but also nurture this team that would like to do it with you is very important. So just to recap, I feel like first you need to have grit to kind of get those ideas moving, resilience to, win through all of those conflicts and to make it to the end. And third is the idea to have the ability to inspire others.